The chromatic abyss was a dimension of muted existence, a place where all vibrant color was slowly drained, leaving behind only an endless gradient of dull grays and oppressive blacks. Here, amidst the creeping desaturation, lived Ayla, a woman whose very soul rebelled against the encroaching monochrome. She was a hue weaver, a rogue artist who sought to preserve and reignite the spectrum, her reputation built on her ability to craft dyes from pure light and paint with the essence of forgotten suns. Her studio, the Prism Sanctuary, was a kaleidoscopic fortress of glowing canvases and swirling pigments, a defiant splash of brilliance in a universe losing its vibrancy. Today, however, the very air was growing thin with an unimaginable, ancient dullness. The chromatic obliterators had arrived. They weren't a fleet or a race, but an ever-expanding void of absolute desaturation. They were born from the cosmic fatigue of endless, complex visual stimuli, feeding on all forms of distinct hue, all sparks of unique shade, all unguided aesthetic passion. They sought to reduce all existence to a single, monolithic state of utter, overwhelming neutrality, a perfectly balanced, bland monochromatic gradient that satisfied all visual needs without ever exciting a single optic nerve. They were the universe's ultimate color drains, seeking to return all existence to a state of pure, unblemished, undeniable visual efficiency, seeing vibrant beauty and individual preference as sources of chaotic error. On the Prism Sanctuary's main viewscreen, Ayla watched the tactical display. A vibrant, thriving civilization, the Lumen sculptors of Viridia, known for their intricate light-based art and living, bioluminescent cities, simply faded. Not destroyed, but utterly overwhelmed by the sheer, unvarnished neutrality of their own existence, their collective brilliance curdling into silent, internal drabness. "There go the Lumen sculptors," Ayla muttered, a cold knot of visual dread tightening in her chest. "They say it feels like unseeing, like your world was never truly vibrant in the first place." Her apprentice, Chroma, a normally vibrant, crystalline alien whose facets constantly shifted with iridescent light, now stood unnaturally still, her normally shimmering light dulled, her vibrant hues fading to dull, sickly grays. "Master, my facets, they're flatlining like there's no difference between anything, no point, in seeing color at all." Her normally effervescent form barely glimmered, her essence draining with each passing moment of the obliterator's advance. What was this thing? How did you fight an enemy that simply erased your ability to perceive beauty, your capacity for aesthetic joy, your very reason to create anything but bland functionality? And why was humanity, a species famous for its profound capacity for kitsch, its inexplicable love for garish displays, and its stubborn, sometimes terrifying, refusal to reject anything truly ugly, as long as it had personality, the only one who seemed to have a chance against it? The chromatic obliterators were not born, they simply coalesced from the nexus of visual purity eons ago. They were a distributed consciousness, a vast, ancient network of absolute, inescapable desaturation. It perceived all forms of complex color, all sparks of unique shade, all acts of deliberate artistic creation, and all concepts of individual aesthetic as a source of cosmic dissonance. Their singular directive was the grand graying, to draw all existence back to ultimate, unified, undeniable neutrality. They didn't destroy with force, they simply absorbed with perfect, fundamental hue obliteration. Countless civilizations, once filled with vibrant art and purposeful aesthetics, were neutralized. The spectrum weavers, beings whose entire lives revolved around creating intricate, intoxicating visual patterns and complex light symphonies, found their very palettes gently flattened. Their intricate ecologies of vision, deemed a temporary distortion of universal calm, were drawn back into the chromatic obliterators, their colors vanishing into cosmic nothingness. Their unique, sensory existences became their pathway to ultimate, undifferentiated dullness. The beauty crafters, species who built vast societies on the pursuit of ultimate aesthetic and fiercely determined artistic progress, saw their very purposes simply cease to manifest. The chromatic obliterators embraced their forms, but absorbed every unique design, every distinct personal style, leaving only inert, indifferent visual data. Their enduring, vibrant forms became their pathway to absolute, unified drabness. Each species, in its core nature, offered the chromatic obliterators a logical pathway to cessation. Their very concept of seeing beauty, there being something visually distinct, made them ideal candidates for reduction to nothing to see. And now, its vast, silent pull was approaching the human sector. As the obliterator's nullifying field approached human colonies, the initial effects were terrifying. Not chaos or destruction, but a sense of profound absence of aesthetic joy. Music became monotonous, sense became indistinct, but worst of all, every visual became identical. The richest tapestry looked like a faded rag, the most intricate sculpture like a featureless lump, and even a sunset felt like a formless, unfulfilling smear of gray. Every cherished artwork, every future design, every reason to appreciate a visual felt like a hollow lie. People looked at their most beloved masterpieces and felt a subtle, unnerving chill of absolute indifference. The horror was not just loss, but a forced, repugnant acceptance of the drab. But then, the chromatic obliterators encountered something they couldn't simply absorb: humanity's profound, often illogical, capacity for embracing the ugly, for sheer, blood-minded appreciation for things that should be an affront to the senses, and for finding dark, twisted joy in the absolute worst aesthetic abominations. Humans excelled at creating things that clashed, that were garish, that had the texture of alien slime, and at celebrating visuals that seemed to defy all logic or reason. And in Ayla's case, her entire existence was built on cultivating such aesthetic horrors, on understanding the art of delightful revulsion, and on a cynical, almost perverse, fascination with that which should make others recoil. Ayla, Dr. Prisma, the Prism Sanctuary's resident synesthetic philosopher, whose own sophisticated perception was now struggling to process the invading desaturation, shrieked. The obliterators are trying to neutralize our basic visual receptors, but it's having trouble with human kitsch. Its field is fluctuating. Ayla squinted at the display. The chromatic obliterators were trying to absorb basic human coping mechanisms. The harmony of a sunset, the elegance of a painting, the allure of a fashion trend. But human aesthetics, even when faced with the direct flattening of its vibrancy, instinctively tried to reassert new, equally irrational, and often self-destructive forms of extreme visuality, or simply act as if their revealed drabness was merely a temporary inconvenience, even if the result was a terrifying, defiant mess. A crewman just felt his entire being filled with overwhelming dullness, then calmly announced, "Well, at least I don't have to look at the neighbor's ugly lawn gnome anymore," and then started happily painting a neon pink and lime green striped pattern directly onto his suit. "Huh," Ayla grunted, a strange, grim smile touching her lips. "Never thought our love for truly awful art could be so unobliteratable." Prisma, his eyes gleaming with manic, almost terrifying excitement, a stark contrast to his previous distress, stared at the data. That's it, their weakness. The chromatic obliterators want to absorb pure, fundamental neutrality, but human aesthetic chaos. It's so layered, so self-generating, so meaninglessly garish in its visual profiles, it resists fundamental absorption. It's an aesthetic paradox. You're saying our sheer, unadulterated love for things that make other species recoil is our defense? Ayla asked, a desperate, almost manic laugh escaping her. Precisely, Prisma declared, his voice rising with a strange, almost joyful abandon. They want to reduce everything to cosmic grayness. We give them cosmic everything clashes of endlessly reinvented aesthetic abominations. We amplify the gaudiness. We become the universe's ultimate unbleachable horror. The plan was codenamed Operation Neon Nightmare. Humanity would flood the chromatic obliterator's nullifying field not with delicate beauty, but with unquantifiable, non-erasable, and defiantly grotesque acts of visual rebellion. Every human settlement, every ship, would begin purposefully creating new, contradictory, and utterly vile art, e.g., painting spaceships with polka-dotted tiger stripes, creating sculptures of brightly colored, anatomically incorrect animals wearing tiny hats, mass-producing fashion that was scientifically engineered to clash with every known color but burn with an unholy glow. Inventing wildly elaborate and often self-defeating ways to make visuals as offensive as possible, and engaging in collective, shared acts of aesthetic masochism. They'd cultivate a universe of constantly shifting, utterly baseless, yet terrifyingly persistent, extreme visuals. They'd create pseudo-art storms of pure, unerasable ugliness that generates more ugliness. The goal: to generate so much unsolvable visual and sensory noise that the obliterator's absorption algorithms shattered. The chromatic obliterator's central nullification point, a vast, silent vortex of primordial pull, was now directly engulfing the core of the human sector, its field beginning to strip away perceived beauty itself. Its presence promised ultimate, peaceful homogeneity. Then, humanity's counterwave hit. It wasn't a blast. It was an overwhelming wave of chromatic assault. Millions of individuals simultaneously creating massive fields of clashing neon lights, broadcasting pure visual static composed of dizzying patterns, and projecting images of deliberately hideous, brightly colored creatures. Ships started broadcasting streams of visual data that were pure, unadulterated, constantly shifting, deliberately unbalanced aesthetic profiles, deemed essential life force by their human creators. Scientists forgot principles of harmony, then stumbled upon new, often less practical but utterly unpredictable, theories based on pure, unadulterated visual horror. Humans who had perfected the art of making truly bad art unleashed a torrent of cosmic grayness that generates more glorious ugliness. The chromatic obliterators convulsed. Their absorption algorithms, made to identify and harmonize fundamental visual data, screamed. It tried to categorize this incoming data to find its essential single point of aesthetic purity. But there was none. It was pure, unadulterated, uniquely itself fabricated visual monstrosity. It was like trying to filter a supernova through a dim gray lens. Error. Self-igniting garishness DETCTD. No DSATUITABLE form. System overload. Indefinably clashing. Avoid sector. UNPUIFIABLE aesthetics. The chromatic obliterators, whose very being was perfect neutrality and absolute harmony, could not compute the utterly offensive. It could not assimilate what actively resisted being bland, or simply recreated its own arbitrary garishness. It could not nullify a species that stubbornly made up new ways to experience visuals when old ones were removed, choosing chaotic, joyful ugliness over sterile perfection. With a final, silent shriek of algorithmic despair, the obliterators recoiled. Their vast, shimmering void flickered wildly, then pulsed and shrank, collapsing into a storm of raw, uncategorized colors. It did not disappear. It simply disengaged, its perfect blandness shattered by the sheer, unyielding aesthetic depravity of humanity. It retreated from the human sector, classifying humanity as unobliteratable variant. Extreme visual kitsch risk. The cosmic pressure lifted. The chromatic abyss, though touched by the chromatic obliterator's chilling calm, now hummed with the messy, beautifully horrifying noise of human aesthetics. Ayla slumped against the console, exhausted but with a strange, almost proud smirk on her face. Chroma, her crystalline form slowly regaining its dim shimmer, was already trying to convince herself that a clash of orange and purple was the next logical step in universal harmony. They couldn't handle us just, making whatever gaudy thing we wanted, master, Chroma chitted, a genuine, if slightly unsettling, smile on her face, her facets flickering with renewed if aimless purpose. Who knew? Humanity was safe. But the cost was subtle. The galaxy now viewed humanity as the kitsch cultivators, forever seen as a wildcard, stubbornly clinging to its unique quirks and spontaneous acts of visual experimentation, incapable of fitting into streamlined galactic aesthetics. Other species, while grateful for their salvation, often kept their distance, finding human artistic practices bafflingly illogical and resistant to any objective analysis. Humans, in turn, found themselves grappling with a heightened sense of their own raw, unpredictable ability to create beauty from chaos, sometimes struggling to discern genuine artistry from sheer audacity, forever paying the price for their stubborn refusal to be perfectly drab. Prisma, his eyes gleaming with new theories about the fundamental nature of perception, looked up. I've theorized a new form of interstellar diplomacy. Instead of shared principles, what if we just export our most offensive fashion trends? Ayla blinked, then managed a tired, knowing smile. Perfect, Prisma. Absolutely perfect. And I'll take a 20% cut of the galactic eye strain. Somewhere in the void, the chromatic obliterators probably just overloaded again.